die from complications with COVID. And his seat will be open for the duration of session. There will be a special election in mid-March to fill that seat. So the state Senate will actually be operating with 39 members through this session. That House of Delegates will be the same as it has been this past year as well, with 55 Democrats and 45 Republicans. So as you're watching session, some of the faces that you are going to see are going to look a little familiar. In the House, we have Speaker Eileen Fillercorn, who is leading the House every day, while the General Assembly session will be remote for almost everyone. Speaker Fillercorn will still be on the floor of the House in the well, while the rest of the body will be zooming in, just like we are zooming in tonight. You'll also see Delegate Charnel Herring, who is the Democratic Majority Leader, and Delegate Rip Sullivan, who is the Democratic Caucus Chair. In the Senate, Senator Dick Saslaw is the Senate Majority Leader. Senator Mamie Locke is the Senate Democratic Caucus Chair. That's the Democratic leadership on that side. And then in the Senate, Lieutenant Governor Justin Fairfax presides over the body. He is also empowered to break a tie in the Senate, although since we will only have 39 members this session, unless someone else is absent, there is not a very strong chance of there being a tie. And Lieutenant Governor Fairfax is the one that you'll be hearing say, are all the senators ready to vote? Have all the senators voted? Does any senator desire to change their vote? The clerk will call the roll over and over and over again as he presides over the Senate floor. This legislative process, just as a quick reminder of what you all can expect, there are a number of steps for bills that will start tomorrow. Any member of the House or delegates can introduce a bill. This year, however, because it is a short session and some restrictions that we'll talk about in a minute, the legislators do have the ability to introduce fewer bills than they have in the past. So in the House, delegates are restricted to only filing 7 bills, and in the Senate, they are restricted to 12 bills apiece, which is a big limit from where they've been in the past. Typically, in a legislative session, it is not unusual to see a couple of thousand bills. This year, there will be fewer because of the bill limits in order to accommodate a virtual platform, in order to accommodate a virtual session. So there are some things maybe that we won't see filed this year because of bill limits, and we'll probably also see fewer delegates carrying versions of the same things because they have such strict limits on what they can introduce. So once those bills go in, they're going to start moving through the legislative process. A lot of those bills have been filed already, and we'll see more of them coming over the next couple of days. The first stop for any bill is going to be committee. In the House, the Speaker makes committee assignments for bills, and in the Senate, those are done by the clerk of the Senate. So once that bill is introduced, it's sent to a committee that deals with that subject matter. So for example, bills that have to do with voting and voting access and elections administration go to the Privileges and Elections Committee in the House and in the Senate. It could then get assigned to a subcommittee, which is a smaller group of legislators, but not every bill goes to a subcommittee. Some of them just start in full committee and are rocking and rolling. So once that bill is assigned to committee, then we're going to wait for it to come up on a docket for a hearing. The committee will take a vote, and if a majority of the committee approves that bill, then it'll keep moving forward. In committee is when you're going to have the opportunity to provide comment on a bill, to hear any public testimony, and to weigh in. And we'll talk about in just a second what that's going to look like in this virtual session and what the procedures are going to be as well. So then once the committee votes, that bill is going to move on to the next step. If a majority of the committee votes for the bill, then it's going to move to the floor. If the majority of the committee votes against the bill, then it is dead for the session. So if a majority of the committee votes for the bill, then it comes to the floor, either in the House or the Senate, wherever it started. And the Virginia General Assembly operates under Jefferson's rules. So when a bill comes to the floor, it has to be read 3 times before they vote on it. And that is just procedural maneuvering that they do. So if you take a look at what's on tap on the floor on any given day, you're going to see bills broken up into 3 categories. That'll be first reading, second reading, and third reading. And that indicates what posture that bill is in on the floor. So on first reading, the bill title is just printed on the calendar. The calendar is what we call the daily agenda for business on the floor. And on first reading, nothing happens. They don't talk about the bill. They don't vote on it. All they do is just move it along to second reading. So then the next day on second reading is when the bill is debated on the floor, and when they can make amendments to the bill. There's lots of opportunities for a bill to change from when it is introduced to when it passes or ends up with the governor. It could be amended in committee and it can be amended on the floor, but it has to be amended when it's on that second reading list. And then on the third reading, members are going to vote on whether to pass or not pass the bill. So if you're watching a particular bill and it passes committee and comes to the floor, you can typically count on it being on the floor for 3 days. And the third day is when they're actually going to take that vote on it. Sometimes it can be longer because any member can ask for a bill to go by for the day without objection, which means that, they're maybe still working on an amendment or they're waiting for some information and not ready to debate it yet. And that just means what it sounds like, right? That they're just going to jump over that bill for the day and it stays in the exact same posture that it was in before, right? So if a bill is on third reading and they're waiting for a vote, if somebody asks for it to go by for the day, then it will just stay on third reading until they vote on it. And that's how it proceeds all the way up until crossover. And crossover is the midway point of session. And that is the point at which all of the bills that started in the House have to have passed the House if they're going to keep moving forward. And all of the bills that started in the Senate have to have passed the Senate in order to keep moving forward. If we started with a voting bill that went to the Senate Privileges and Elections Committee, and then it goes to the floor, if a majority of the members of the House don't vote to pass that bill, by the time we get to crossover, then that bill dies because it wasn't passed or because it never came out of committee. So once we get to that crossover point, which I think is going to be about February 5th this year, but don't quote me on that. That is when the House is going to start dealing with all of the Senate bills and the Senate is going to start dealing with all of the Senate bills. And things will be slowed by for a minute or slowed down a little bit. There's a question in the chat about how many times a bill can be passed by for the day. And there is unfortunately no limit on that. They can just keep passing it by for as long as they want. And it does require unanimous consent. So, if I'm Delegate Anna and I have a bill that's on the floor that folks are ready to vote on, somebody else could ask for that bill to go by for the day. And if I object, then it stays where it is. But it is typically considered collegial and just sort of graciousness of the body that unless there's sort of a screwy reason, well, somebody is trying to screw up a bill, generally everybody agrees to let it go by for the day. So once we get past crossover, then the whole process starts again. So House bills are going to go to a Senate committee where they'll have probably another hearing. That Senate committee then is going to have to vote yes or no with a majority of members. And then that bill has to come to the floor again for the Senate to pass it. So, in order to keep moving forward and becoming a law, the House and the Senate have to pass the exact same language of that same bill. If my awesome voting bill passes the House with the language that I want, and then it goes to the Senate, and the Senate changes some of the language and makes it look a little different, then my bill has to go to a conference committee where a small group of legislators, typically three from the House and three from the Senate, are going to hash out their differences and try to come up with a compromise version of the bill. And that compromise version then has to go back to the full House and the full Senate to try to pass it. One of the challenging things in trying to follow a bill through the process is that conference committees don't meet and aren't publicly accessible the way that a standing committee is, right? Like the House Privileges and Elections Committee or the Senate Commerce and Labor Committee. They're not meeting at standing times, they don't have an agenda. A conference committee really tends to mean more of a private, closed door, or casual conversation between legislators to hash out a compromise. And then we get to see what the substance of that compromise is when the conference report comes back to the floor for them to present and vote on. So then once my bill has passed the House and it's passed the Senate, we've hashed out any differences in conference committee and everybody has passed the same language, then my bill is going to go to the governor. And the governor actually has 4 choices on what to do with my bill while it gets there. The first is that he can say, yes, this bill is awesome and I love this new policy and I am signing it and putting my name right here. Then he signs the bill and that bill becomes law, typically on July 1st. That's usually the date that new laws go into effect. The second option is just like the House and the Senate may not have been able to agree on the same language. The governor could say, I like most of this, but I have some quibbles with some of the language in the bill, and I'm going to make some suggestions. And he would then send back amendments to the House and the Senate, which the House and the Senate then have to vote on again. You may be getting the sense there's a lot of voting that happens. So if a majority of the House and a majority of the Senate vote yes on the governor's amendments, then those amendments are adopted and he would sign that bill and it would go into law. Alternatively, the governor could look at my bill that has passed the legislature and say, no, this is a hot mess and a terrible idea. I'm definitely not signing this. In which case, the governor would veto the bill, which means that he rejects it. And in that case, it still comes back to the House and the Senate, and the House and the Senate have the opportunity to override that veto. It takes a 2/3 vote in each chamber. So two-thirds of the House have to vote to override the veto, and 2/3 of the Senate have to vote to override the veto. And if they did that, then the bill they passed would become law even over the governor's objections. And in the case that either the governor vetoes a bill or he sends back amendments, later in the year, typically sometime in April, the legislature is going to come back for a day or so for what's called reconvened session, or sometimes folks call it veto session. When they come back, usually it's just for a day, and all they do is consider the governor's vetoes and amendments and vote on those, and then they go home again. And then the last thing that the governor can do is he can decide not to take any action. If he or she, maybe at some point in the future, reads a bill and says, I don't love this bill so much that I want to put my name on it. I don't hate this bill so much that I want to veto it. They can just take no action. And after a period of time, if the governor doesn't sign the bill, but also doesn't veto it, it will automatically become law. So, along with the legislative session comes a lot of lingo that you're going to hear and want to know what it means. So, we covered a minute ago what first, second, and third reading are. That again is that on the floor in both the House and the Senate, a bill has to be read 3 times before it can be voted on and passed. And if you're watching the floor in the House or the Senate, they're actually going to work through these in backwards order. And the calendar, which again is like the agenda for the day on the floor, will list them in backwards order. So you'll have third reading, which are the bills that are up for a final vote that day. You'll have second reading, which is when those bills can be debated or amended. And then you'll have first reading, where nothing happens. It's just a procedural thing. If you look at that floor calendar or you're listening closely on the floor, the other thing that you're going to hear actually is that there are 2 categories for each of these, which makes it sometimes even more confusing. So you'll see listed third reading uncontested, and then third reading regular calendar. Both of those, because they're third reading, are bills that are ready to be voted on that day. If a bill is listed on the uncontested list, that means that it was unanimous in committee. Everybody voted for it. Everybody thought it was a good idea, and then it made it through 3 days on the floor, 2 days on the floor without any other objections or questions. So, in order to kind of speed things along and streamline their business on the floor, bills that were unanimous in committee and don't have any objection are all passed in a block on the uncontested calendar, which means that instead of taking an individual vote on each bill, they're just going to make a motion to pass all of the bills in that block. And that could be 5 bills, it could be 25 bills, depending on the day. And the idea is, we know we're going to pass this. Everybody loves it. Nobody has an objection. We're just going to speed through it a little more quickly. Bills that are on the regular calendar then are bills that somebody doesn't like or has an objection to, wants to vote no to, wants to debate or discuss. So those bills are likely going to take a little bit more time, and they're going to take them up and debate them and vote on them one by one. So that's the difference that you're going to see there. Crossover, we talked about a minute ago, is the date by which each house, the House and the Senate, has to finish working on their own bills. So the House has to finish all the House bills that start with HB. The Senate has to finish all the Senate bills that start with SB. Any bills that they have not passed by that point, by the end of the crossover day, are dead. And then they start working on their counterpart bills. So the House works on the Senate bills and the Senate works on the House bills. And that date will be in early February. I think it's about February 5th. In committees, some language that you're going to hear are motions to report a bill, which is good. That means that they want to pass a bill, or a motion to PBI or lay a bill on the table. And those are both motions that would kill a bill. So if you're watching a committee hearing, you're going to want to listen for what that motion is. Because if somebody moves to lay a bill on the table, then a yes vote is a yes to the motion, not a yes to the bill. It means I'm voting yes, I want to kill this bill. So those are some of the nuances you want to pay attention to make sure you understand what's happening. PBI means pass by indefinitely. So legislators often just say, like, move to PBI. You may also hear a legislator say, I move to lay this bill gently on the table. That is not a real thing. It doesn't impact in any way that they're killing the bill. It's just sort of a joking phrase that they use to indicate to their colleagues that, like, I'm sorry, I don't like your bill, but I like you, and I'm trying not to be mean about it. On the floor, you're going to hear, and occasionally in committee, a couple of other phrases. So you may often hear on the floor the speaker in the House or the lieutenant governor in the Senate say that they're going to be momentarily at ease. That's the phrase they'll use, at ease. And that just means that there is going to be a quick pause in the legislative action while um, they make a note on their paper, pull up the right bill that they need, just double check something. It basically means that they're taking a quick break, but the legislature is still in session. Nobody should leave or go away. It's just only going to be a minute. Sometimes they will say they're at ease if Democrats and Republicans are having a disagreement over the rules or procedure, in which case they will be at ease for a minute, and the proceedings will pause, maybe while they have a little sidebar to have a conversation or hash something out. In contrast, when they recess, that is that they are taking a formal break. If they were meeting in person, it would mean they would probably leave the floor, and they'll come back at some other point. In the House and the Senate, you're also going to hear them refer to morning hour. Or at some point during the day, you might hear a legislator ask for leave to return to morning hour. Morning hour is a phrase that they use to define a particular part of the agenda, where they are doing administrative and chit chatty things, and not actually generally taking action on bills. So the period, it's not necessarily an hour, right? It doesn't mean that like we are spending an hour on this and no other time. But morning hour is the period of time where they do introductions. In the days, in the not 2020 days, 2021 days, in the before times when you could go to the legislature and sit in the gallery, it's when they would do introductions. I think they'll probably do some virtual introductions this year. It is when legislators can make speeches, whether that is a speech about impeaching Donald Trump or Black History Month. There's no sort of like a limit on what they might decide to talk about. There are a lot of legislators running for statewide office this year, which means that probably a lot of people eager to take advantage of that morning hour time to make speeches. And morning hour is often also when just some like administrative things happen. It's when a legislator would make a request for a bill to go by for the day, or to move a bill from the list of uncontested bills, right? The ones that nobody objects to. That's when they would ask to move it to the regular calendar when somebody could object to it, so people can vote no. And then the last thing, I'm sure there are more, but the last thing we wanted to cover in terms of General Assembly lingo was sine die, which is the day that we all eagerly wait for. Sine die is a Latin term. There sometimes is debate with legislators on how to actually pronounce it. You may hear some of them say sine die. I don't know which one is right because I don't speak Latin. You are welcome to school me in the comments. But it is a Latin term for without day, and it refers to when the legislature adjourns without a date to return. So that means they're not like adjourning to come back the next afternoon or anything like that. They are adjourning and they are done. So when they finish all of their business in the House, you will hear Leader Herring. In the Senate, you will probably hear Senator Locke say, I move that we adjourn sine die, sine die. And then everybody cheers because it means that they are done with session and they get to go home. So this year, what you need to know. So 2021 is going to be a little different. Because of pandemic, the legislature is going to operate a little differently this year, and interacting with the legislature is going to be a lot different this year. Um, and there is no one standard set of rules or procedures. How the House is going about it and how the Senate is going about it are also a little different. So the House is going to be operating 100% virtually. That means that those 100 delegates will not be in Richmond. They won't all be together in person. They will be having all of their committee meetings and all of their floor sessions over video, essentially over Zoom. That's how they operated during the special session this past summer, if you watched any of that, and that'll be the deal starting tomorrow as well. The Senate is meeting offsite, so nobody will be meeting actually in that beautiful Capitol building right there. The Senate, the 39 at the moment senators, will be meeting with each other in person. Um, but they will be at the Science Museum of Virginia, which is a larger space that is better able to accommodate them to be socially distant from each other. The Senate floor, while it accommodates all 40 of them, does not accommodate them in a way in order for them all to be 6 feet apart from each other. So the Senate will be in person with each other and with a small number of staff. But the public for committee meetings and such will engage with all of them virtually as well. So again, if you followed any of this special session last summer, it will be the same process where their committee meetings will the public will access them through video. This is the very small silver lining of the pandemic is that this is the first year that all of the committee and subcommittee hearings from the legislature will live stream themselves. We are no longer doing that at Progress Virginia because the legislature is going to do it. So if you have a bill that you are really passionate about and you want to testify on, we'll talk about in just a second sort of what the process is going to be to sign up. But whereas in past years, you would have come to Richmond and sat in a room with those legislators and then spoken on that bill in person, this year it's all going to happen over video conference. Like many other things in the world, it'll be a Zoom meeting. So this website is one of the best places to start when you are trying to track down legislative information. This is virginiageneralassembly.gov. It is the best place to start. And it will take you right here to this who's my legislator piece. If you don't know, to look up who your delegate and state senator is and to get you all of their contact information. While the session is going to be completely virtual and you can't be with your legislators in person, that doesn't mean that you can't contact them and still reach out to set up a conversation. That conversation will just happen over phone or over video conference, hopefully. So once you track down that contact information for your legislators, you can still definitely call or email their office to schedule a meeting. You are going to be most impactful trying to reach out to the legislators who represent you, who you are a constituent of. So make sure to mention a constituent when you call or email and note the bill or the list of bills that you want to discuss so they know what the meeting is about. This session in particular, you need to be prepared to potentially meet with a legislative aide instead of the legislator, excuse me. Because of the virtual format, and we'll talk about sort of the calendar in a minute, many legislators, not all of them, are going to be sort of even busier and in more back-to-back meetings than they are even during a normal session. Their legislative aides are very smart people who work very hard. They are in constant contact with the legislators that they work with. And you should feel totally comfortable having a meeting with a legislative aide to share your thoughts on a bill or your ask or whatever it is. And just know that that is very likely to happen because your legislators are going to be not only participating in the floor sessions. They're going to be in committee meetings for the committees that they're a member of where they vote, but then they're also going to have bills to present in committees, and they're going to be bouncing back and forth between Zoom meetings as well. You want to make sure before that meeting to familiarize yourself with the issue that you want to talk about and any talking points. There are lots of advocacy organizations, including Progress Virginia, who can make sure you have all of that you need. But make sure in particular to make notes to share on why the issue is important and personal to you. Legislators hear all the time from lots of professional lobbyists who can give them, all of the data and statistics and research. But the unique thing that you all have as grassroots advocates is your personal story and experience of why an issue is important to you, how it has impacted you and your family and your community. That really makes that issue, makes that policy real for them. And those personal stories are often what have the greatest impact. So think about that and be sure to bring that with you to your meeting. Um, if you're having a meeting in a group, it often helps to assign roles for the conversation, to have a note taker, to have a designated person who's responsible maybe for presenting a few different bills that you care about, to make sure that the meeting runs smoothly and that you as the constituent stay in charge of it, because legislators work for you. And then finally, you just want to make sure that you share the bill number that you care about and the bill sponsors with the legislator so they can make sure that they have the right information, and to be really clear about your ask, whether that is that you want them to vote yes on a bill, to vote no on a bill, if you want them to sign on as a co-patron of a bill. Make sure that there's no question or confusion on what it is that you're asking them to do. So, bill tracking, figuring out what is happening and when and how you participate is going to be sort of the last thing that we talk about this evening. And it is finding all the moving pieces is a little complicated this year. And there's a couple of different websites that are going to help you do that. So the first is virginiageneralassembly.gov. So when you first head over there, it's going to give you this screen that is on the left side here. And if you click on this little button at the top right here, the plus sign that says click for bill tracking meetings, who's my legislator, it will take you to the image that is on the right, which is one of the best shortcuts to quickly find all of the pieces that you need for finding information during session. It takes you to the meeting schedule, to the video feeds, to find individual bills, to look up individual members, all of those things. So keep that link in mind. That is a super, super helpful shortcut. In particular, one of the things that you are going to want to make sure that you save and have easily accessible are all of the ways to access video. So one of the things to know about the legislative session is the House and the Senate use somewhat different systems. So there is a compilation of links on the Virginia General Assembly website to get you to where you need to go. So there's a link for accessing the House floor session. There's a different link for accessing committee video. The Senate keeps committee and floor all together. So if you bookmark this site, it will have whatever you need to get to where you need to go. Unfortunately, there's just a couple of different pieces there. The other website that you're going to want to keep an eye on is this sort of less attractive site, but that has all of the good information, which is lis.virginia.gov. This is the other one that you're going to want to bookmark. LIS stands for Legislative Information System. And this is sort of the central directory of all of the bills, all of the members, and everything that is happening. So when you head over to lis.virginia.gov, you're going to get this page over on the left-hand side of your screen. And this navigation menu here has all of the things that you're going to want. It has links to all of the bills that have been filed. If you want to read them, you can click through and find General Assembly members and their contact information. You can click through to individual House and Senate committees to get a list of them, and then sort of follow that stream of links down to get information about the committee, what legislators are on it, when they're meeting, what is on a meeting agenda for a particular day. This daily floor calendars link is going to take you to lists for the House and Senate for the House floor calendar and the Senate floor calendar. And remember, that means that's the agenda for what they're doing on the floor that day. And then this meetings link is one that you're going to want to use really frequently. This is the master House and Senate committee meeting schedule. The House, sometimes helpfully and somewhat confusingly, also maintains their own separate meeting calendar that is just the House. The Senate does not have a separate external facing Senate meeting calendar. So when you click on meetings here, this screenshot is from earlier in the week, but it's going to take you to this chart that is a list by day of what time, what committees are meeting, what time, what the link is to be able to watch it, and then a link for the committee information to click through to get more information around what is happening and what is on their list for that day. So this is sort of the master directory of who is meeting when. If you have paid attention to or engaged in previous legislative sessions, like I said before, almost everything about this session is going to be different, including the meeting schedule. So the Senate has not yet released a new meeting schedule. Hopefully we will get that tomorrow when they convene. But the House has released a new schedule, and it is different from previous years. So the House, in order to accommodate all of these virtual meetings, has adjusted their schedule, and you can sort of see the start of it down further on this list, so that they are operating in time blocks each day, starting at 7 a.m. and then going into the late afternoon and likely the evening. Most blocks are 2 hours long. So there's block one is 7 a.m. to 9 a.m. And that is when there is a set of subcommittees that will meet. Which subcommittee it is changes by day, which is why you're going to want to keep an eye on this meeting calendar. And they have not in previous years, there has not been both a start and an end time for committee meetings. They just take however long they take to get through what they've decided to get through that day. This year, the House is putting end times on committee meetings because they're working on this block schedule. So that first block one is from 7 a.m. to 9 a.m. for a set of subcommittees. From 9 a.m. to 11 a.m. is block two, when there is a set of full committees that will meet. 11 a.m. to 1 p.m. is block three, when there's another set of subcommittees that meet. 1 p.m. to 3 p.m. is block four, when full committees will meet. So the pattern is subcommittees, full committees, subcommittees, full committees. And then for the House at 3 p.m., all of those committee meetings stop and they will go to caucus. So the Democratic caucus will meet and the Republican caucus will meet. And then at 4 p.m., they will convene on the floor. And that is a different time from in past years. Usually in previous years, the floor session has always convened at noon. This year, the House is going to be meeting at 4, and there is no end time for the floor session. So it takes as long as it takes for whatever they have on their agenda that day. And then once the floor is finished, then if there are any full committees that have not finished whatever they were trying to get through that day in the time blocks earlier in the day, then they can start meeting again once the floor is done. And those meetings will be, you'll see it on the calendar, it'll say like 30 after ADJ, and that stands for adjournment. It means that they will start that meeting 30 minutes after the floor adjourns. So that is the House calendar at the moment, and that is only their calendar through through crossover. The Senate sounds like they are not going to have the same calendar as the House. So after crossover, when the House members are then presenting their bills to Senate committees and senators are presenting their bills to Senate committees, the House plans to adjust their calendar a little bit so that the House and the Senate are both on the floor at the same time. So we should get, the Senate hasn't released any new information about their calendar yet. We should get more information tomorrow once they convene. The exception to the House floor at 4 p.m. rule for the next couple of weeks is going to be tomorrow, which is the first day of session, when both the House and the Senate will start at noon. And that is procedurally what they have to do to convene and kick off a new session. They will be debating and passing some rules resolutions tomorrow on the floor. And then in the House, committee meetings will start tomorrow afternoon. They will be 30 minutes after the House adjourns from the floor. And House Privileges and Elections is going to meet tomorrow. House Courts is going to meet tomorrow, and the House Agriculture Committee is going to meet tomorrow. This screenshot here of the calendar was just taken before that calendar updated. But if you go to lis.virginia.gov and then click on meetings, it will give you the most up-to-date schedule of who is meeting when. So that is just when they are meeting. There are a few more steps if you want to engage in the meeting. So if we go back, actually, sorry. So there are live stream links here on the calendar, in addition to that central place that I showed you on virginiageneralassembly.gov that can take you to the video of an individual meeting if you just want to watch. If you want to participate in the meeting and you want to provide public comment on a bill or a set of bills, then there's a couple more steps that you're going to need to take. And they are not the same in the House and the Senate. So if you look over at the left side of the screen, this is the committee page for House Privileges and Elections. So if I just clicked through from the meeting listed on the master meeting calendar, it's going to take me here. And this shows me who all is on the Privileges and Elections Committee. So Delegate Simon is the chair. This meeting time is not accurate. It's just a placeholder. They are not meeting Wednesdays at 1 a.m. They are meeting Wednesdays at 1 p.m. typically. And then this list right here is what you want to look at. If I click on agendas, then that's going to take me to a list of dates with the bills that are going to be heard on that day. And if I click through to that agenda, here, right, it's going to take me to this. So the meeting on the 13th, I can then click on that and see a list of the bills that they're going to hear. And I can sign up to either testify to the committee or to submit written comments. There's a few different links where you can do that. So I can, if I click here on comments on bills on the committee page, that's going to pull up for me this screen on the right, which is a list of all of the bills that have been sent to that committee. And then, excuse me, sorry about that. Then I just click on which ones I want to submit comments on, and I can submit written comments that way. That will go to the committee members. If I want to sign up to speak in the hearing on the bill, then I'm going to click on this sign up to speak or submit comments link here, or I can do it again on the docket page that lists the bills that are being heard that day. If I were to click through here, there's another sign up to speak before committee link, and that'll take me there. If you sign up to speak before committee, you're going to register, and then in usually the couple of hours before the committee meeting, the committee clerk will send you the Zoom login information for you to be able to log in and testify in that committee. There's a couple of things to know. The first is that just because you have signed up online to speak in a committee meeting does not necessarily promise that you will be able to. They may have a lot of bills to get through. They may have a lot of people sign up to provide public comment. And in a 2-hour meeting, if they have 200 people sign up to speak on a bill, not all of those people are going to be able to speak. So think of it as a strong request to comment, right? Not a promise that you'll be able to comment. And then each committee sets its own rules, and the committee chair has total autonomy to be able to decide how many people get to speak, how long, and how long they get to speak for. So it is not at all unusual in committees for a committee chair to put limits on public testimony. And that could be that they could say everybody has 2 minutes to speak, and after 2 minutes, they're going to cut you off. They could also limit the number of people who are able to testify. So oftentimes they'll say, 5 people in support of the bill and 5 people in opposition of the bill. Depending on how busy their schedule is that day, how many bills they need to get through, and how many people want to speak. On the House side, the chair will have that poll option in Zoom, so that if not everybody gets to speak, they can still take a poll to see like how many people were there to speak for a bill and against a bill. But given the limitations of a virtual format and how quick session is going to be this year, you should always anticipate when you're signing up to speak on a bill that public comment is going to be limited, that you're going to need to be brief in your remarks, and that it is possible that you won't get to speak at all. The other way to access public comment for the House is going to be through this hodspeak.house.virginia.gov website that they have set up, or HOD for House of Delegates Speak. So that's going to take you to this landing page that will then help you navigate down into how to submit comments, or sign up to speak on any individual bill or anything like that. That is all the House system. In a Senate committee, the system looks a little different. Once they start publishing committee meetings on the meeting calendar and publishing committee meeting dockets, there will most likely be a link on each of those online listings, similar to how there was for the House here, to sign up to submit comments, to sign up to speak in committee. Same restrictions apply, right? That in the Senate, the committee chairs get to decide how many people speak, how long they can speak for, etc. But in the Senate, if you want to submit written comment, the way right now that they've asked folks to do that is to email your comments to committeeoperations@senate.virginia.gov. You're going to want to include the bill number that you care about, and any relevant comments, and then that will get to the committee members from there as well. They'll distribute it. The other way that you can keep an eye on to sign up to speak in committee is going to be on the Senate live session video stream page. So if you remember, if we go back to our virginiageneralassembly.gov website, if you click on members in session, then under quick links, if you come down to Senate of Virginia Committee and floor streaming, if you click there, it will take you over to this second page that is shown on sort of the bottom right image. And as they get going and committees start meeting, there should also be a list there of committee meetings to be able to click through to sign up to speak. So the other reason that a couple of other things to know as things get moving, and then if you guys have more questions, remember to drop them in the Q&A, and I'll try to answer a couple now. So um, Virginia has one of the shortest legislative sessions anywhere in the country. So in years ending in an even number, so like 2020, session is typically 60 days because that's when they do the whole 2-year budget. In a year ending in an odd number, which is 2021, typically the legislative session is 45 days. And they don't do the whole budget, they just do amendments to the budget because Virginia has a part-time legislature. Um, this year, um, there is some disagreement between Democrats and Republicans over how long the legislative session is going to be. Technically, the Virginia Constitution lays out that the legislative session in odd numbered years is 30 days, and 2/3 of the legislature can vote on a resolution on new rules to extend it, which is what they have done every single time since the 1970s. It is just sort of routine, agreed upon procedure that they extend it to 45 days, a whole 45 days. The Republicans are not interested in doing that this year. They don't super love legislating virtually because of the pandemic, and they have their noses out of joint over both a Democratic trifecta, but also some of the policies that Democrats passed in 2020. And they would prefer that we just don't pass any more bills. So they're trying to limit session to 30 days. As you can imagine, the Democratic leadership is less than enthused about that. So when session convenes tomorrow, there is a good chance that there will be some back and forth on the floor over the procedural resolutions that are usually somewhat routine about how long session is going to be. If Republicans don't provide the votes for to get to 2/3 to approve 45 days, then the governor has said that he would immediately call them back after they adjourn sine die after 30 days for another 15-day session so that they still have 45 days of legislating this year. So it is likely to happen one day or the other, or one way or the other. The governor has the authority to call a special session. It's just mostly a question of how that happens. Mary had a question about if there is a date bills must be introduced by, and there is. So there's a couple of dates. The first deadline is tomorrow, which is the date by which all pre-filed bills have to be filed. And that is mostly an administrative thing that helps the legislative staff prepare. Pre-filed refers to bills that have been submitted early to legislative services for drafting. The final drop dead date by which all bills have to be filed, after which nothing can be filed without sort of special rules, is going to be next Friday. So if you are watching that lis.virginia.gov website, you're going to see lots of bills show up tomorrow, and they will keep rolling in for the next few days as they head into session. One other just scheduling thing to be aware of is tomorrow is the first day of session. Tomorrow is also the annual State of the Commonwealth address. So the similar to how at the federal level the president does an annual State of the Union, here the governor does an annual State of the Commonwealth. So that is tomorrow at 7 p.m. And you can watch it like everything else on the internet. It will not be live, or people won't be allowed to be there in person. But you can watch it on the governor's. It'll be streamed on his Twitter account, on his Facebook page, and then PBS will also carry it live. So if you get, Virginia Public Media or something like that, you can get it on all of their internet accounts, and then also on your old school TV, if that's how you're going about it. So, last call for any questions around session. If you do have more questions, you can definitely reach out to us at Progress Virginia. You can ping us at info@progressva.org. And if you're looking for ways to stay engaged, and keep in touch with what's going on during session, make sure that you subscribe to our email list over at progressva.org. And then follow us on Facebook and on Twitter and on Instagram, where we will have lots of ongoing updates from the session. We're going to do a new thing this year that we are calling, I think, the Richmond Report. Please forgive me, LaTwyla, and our digital team, if I did not name that correctly.
Richmond Recap.
Richmond Recap at 1 p.m. on Fridays. Some of our team will be live on Facebook to do a quick update on what has happened in Richmond that week, and what is on tap coming up. So there are lots of ways to stay up to date and engaged. You know where to find us. Thank you for joining us tonight. We hope that was helpful. We are recording this, so if you missed something or want to share it with somebody, give us a shout and we'll send you the link. Thanks. Have a good night. Wear a mask and social distance. And go tell those legislators what you think about all of these bills. Night. Talk to you soon.